I would like you all to take a moment and try and remember the very first thing that you learned freshman year of high school in your very first class. Most of you won't even remember what class you took, but in my intro to agriculture class at 8 a.m., what I learned will stick with me forever, hopefully. The first thing that we learn is that agriculture relates to pretty much everything, including clothes, food, shelter, fuel, furniture, medicine, and even recreational activities. But I'd argue that the most important thing there is food, and with genetically engineering crops, I believe that we could feed millions of hungry people. And to put the severity into perspective, if you've ever skipped a grocery store run, that would be considered food insecure, as you were not able to provide for yourself for the time being. And 2022 USDA Agricultural Biotechnical Glossary definition of a GEO is an organism produced through genetic engineering. I will be more specifically referring to transgenic organisms, which is the insertion of a gene from one organism into another using recombinant DNA strategies. Here at CSU, I'm a soil and crop sciences major. I'm studying plant biotechnology and breeding, and I want to try and use GM crops to help solve world hunger, or at least put a plate in front of somebody who did not think that they were going to get a nutritious meal that day. I grew up in the suburbs of Denver, so it's kind of weird how I got my agriculture start pretty early, and I have a little bit over 6.5 years of agricultural class knowledge taking, from food products and processing to soil science, and from veterinary science to forestry and wildlife. So I have a little bit of on both sides and just a little wide range of knowledge on all of agriculture. I found love doing that, and I really just want to solve the industry's problems and the footprint that it can leave on the world, because it can be pretty nasty. I believe that with genetically engineering organisms, the cultivation of these crops could be the solution to the insecurity of food rates rising. And with proper regulation of GMOs, I believe that we could feed the 900 million hungry people that are in this world right now. Humanity definitely tends to walk a thin line, though, whenever extreme possibilities are involved, and genetic engineering is no different. There should definitely be regulation enforced through the industry if we transgenically modify crops, whether it's a consumer crop or a cover crop. Issues are stemming from acceptance in the community to patents on the genes themselves, making corporate greed an issue. And in a personal interview I conducted February 8th with Professor Tori Anderson, she said that humans live in a gray area and we operate in a gray area. We tend to do a lot more of what we can do rather than what we should do. And this shows with different purposes with genetics modification, whereas like you could make tomatoes super bouncy and structural so that way they don't get squishy in truck transport, which I don't see as a need of genetic modification, versus expressing mercury phytoremediation possibilities in plants, specifically referring to a study coming out of Nanjing, China in the mid-2020. There was MERA and MERB genes were expressed, and the levels of mercury expressed are in the gray, are the mercury expressed types have acceptable consumption levels according to the Chinese food safety standard laws, as well as not just having better mercury levels in the plants, it also phytoremediates and helps clean up the soil too. That's what the definition of phytoremediation is, sort of cleanup in the soil. And although there's definitely no gray area around the fact that 1 out of every 9 people, or 2 out of 3 students in this class, statistically do not get enough to eat on a regular basis. So food safety is not something that everybody can attain. In my IE 270 class, in our global food security lecture, we learned that the most vulnerable to this are the poverty stricken, and it's pretty much those who live in those darker areas. That's where the most food insecurity rates are in the US. those who live on less than 125 a day, what are they supposed to do if food prices double? I believe that genetically engineering organisms can be the affordable, nutritious aspect that they need to sustain those lives. And the goal here is to pretty much provide sufficient quantities of safe and healthy food, allowing for future generations to benefit from us, as well as our process, not compromising them instead. Food insecurity rates are definitely various. Food insecurity is definitely tied to various problems around the world, and I believe that the regulation of genetically engineering food can increase food safety by providing safe and affordable, nutritious products, coupled along with other efforts. We would be able to hopefully eradicate food insecurity. I would like to leave you all with a quote from my private interview on February 8th with Professor Anderson. If we can't solve the problem, working towards a solution is better than doing nothing. And I really want to live by this personally, as with the exposure that I have with agriculture, I want to try and help the problems, external or internal, throughout the industry. Now, my speech could fade faster than what you learned in your first day of 9th grade, but I want you to picture those who don't know where their next meal is coming from, and that the supervision of genetically engineered resources could help solve the epidemic of food insecurity. And this is a chart of the world map. There's quite a lot of food insecurity in the middle of Africa, in that area, as well as just above India. But America doesn't seem that bad.